Let's talk pumps. I mean, who knew pumping was going to be such an important part of paddleboarding when we all started off many, many years ago? But, of course, inflatable boards need pumps. So we had to become experts at inflation technology. Here is pretty much the timeline of our pumps since day one. So we started off with a big, fat chamber, single action pump. It works. It gets the board up to a certain level of pressure, but it increasingly gets hard to put the high pressures into the boards. So very quickly, when we had this type of pump available with our boards, we progressed to what we call the HP pump. Very, very similar in concept, slightly taller and narrower. So actually, although that increased the time it took to pump your board up, it decreased the effort, the strain per pump stroke. So it made life a little bit easier. But they still wasn't the perfect solution. You still ended up with either a lot of effort or a lot of time. And we really thought, well, come on, there must be a way to balance this out. And actually, it was staring us in the face. It was putting these two pumps together. And that's what we did to create the Titan pump. So we'll get rid of these. Titan pump. Two chambers, those two pumps you've just seen together. Put them together, put the airflow through the handle, down at the board. You could put all the volume in to start with, and then if it got difficult, we just pulled the peg out the back, and we could exhaust the large chamber and then just go to the small chamber. So like a geared system. Brilliant pump. Lasted in our range for at least 5 years now. Was our first design for disassembly product. So by that I mean a product that you can switch out parts if anything was to break or you need maintenance. You could switch out a gauge, a handle, a gasket. And now it's really become part of our pumping methodology from design point of view, is creating pumps that can be repaired and maintained, because after all they are moving parts. So the Titan pump, brilliant, but we still wanted to make that extra bit of improvements in usability and pumping efficiency. So for 2021 we have the Titan 2. Here's the Titan 2. Looks very similar, but you'll see there's a few key things we've done. So we've augmented the pump, so you can now stand in line with the chambers rather than aside the chambers. So actually when you're pumping, you're getting even stroke pressure down through each shaft. The shaft's here. So you're pushing straight down, even pressure on both shafts. And it's got some great features. So first one, removable handle and foldable feet. So this actually reduces the volume of the pump hugely when it comes to rolling the board up. So you get a tighter roll in the bag, so you get it easier to get the board in the bag. Also means that if anything was to, again, break, you can replace them very, very easily. So removable handle, foldable feet. Stowage for the pump, hose and handle on the side as well. The internal workings are completely different to this pump than compared to Titan 1. So Titan 2 has much bigger bores for the air intake and outlet. So it can actually take in a lot more air than you really even need to get into the board, that you can actually physically force down the hose. So it becomes much easier to fill the pump with air and on the upstroke. So there's less resistance on your upstroke. And on the downstroke, all the air is being forced through the most seamless way to get to the board. There's less kinks and bends in its travelling route along its way down into the board. A couple of other things we've done. We've made the hose work either end. So it doesn't matter which way, where you start, you put it in your board, you put it in the pump hose, the pump end, and you end up with the same at both ends. So it's much easier to just connect here with the bayonet fitting and do the same on the board. You're not going to make any mistakes. You can't get it wrong, basically. Also, by having that bayonet fitting on the end of the pump hose at the top, removes any threads here. So if you knock the pump over or it gets kicked over, you won't damage the thread. So you'll always get a perfect airtight seal on this side. Also on Titan 1, you'll remember they had the little red plug that came out. That can get lost and left behind. Now we have an integrated switch. So you start off pumping with the lever in the rearmost position, and this pumps air from both chambers. As it gets difficult, you can then push that forward in a staggered motion until the point where it's right further forward, and then it's just using the narrowest chamber here at the back of the pump to put air into the board. The pressure gauge is protected within the housing, so less likely to get damaged. We've also changed the inner workings of the pressure gauge, so it's much more resilient to knocks and bumps. All the air intake is on the top of the pump now. and the hose stays on the bottom, so on this what we call the air box section of the pump, rather than being on the handle. So it doesn't go up and down as you're pumping, it stays still at the bottom. Also allows us to run a slightly shorter hose. So all in all, you've got a pump that's way more efficient, easier to maintain, packs down smaller, and ultimately is the next step on in pumping evolution for Red Puddle Co.